Evening, I'm Hibak Ahmed and this is an edition of news from Dalsan TV English with the latest news from Somalia and across the world. And these are some of our top news headlines. Deaths reported as drought worsens across the country, says Speaker Adan Madube. Somali Disaster Management Agency calls for action as millions face hunger amid biting drought. And Somali police probes Al-Shabaab suspect arrested in Mogadishu over terror activities. And now welcome to the broadcast. The Speaker of the House of the People of the Federal Government of Somalia has reported drought-related deaths from parts of central Somalia as the drought worsens. Mr. Adan Madube, who addressed the media in Mogadishu, said famine is closer as the country records the first cases of drought-related deaths.
Several people have reportedly died of hunger-related complications in Somalia, while thousands of others face starvation as the ongoing drought takes its toll. The Speaker of the House of the People of the Federal Government of Somalia, Sheikh Adan Madube, has said the deaths linked to hunger have been reported in parts of central and southern Somalia, where millions are facing starvation.
waxaan rabaa maanta ujeedadayda ay tahay baaqayga uu yahay.
He described the famine situation as dire and called for urgent distribution of relief food to avert more death.
Jeedin lahaa bisha hadda lagu jiro September iyo October in gargaarka la kordhiyo si maartay xilli roobaadka ka hor meelihii la gaari karo gargaarka la gaarsiyo.
I would like to recommend that we increase the aid we are giving in the months of September and October to reach people when the rainy season starts. The drought has been with us. We are calling on the government to give priority to the worst hit areas, the regions that are almost at the brink of famine and where deaths have been reported. Those areas should be given priority. The drought has been with us for a while and is now leading to death, according to the information we are getting from the regions. Across Somalia, affected families are now surviving on wild fruits and many have ended up in internally displaced camps, where local and international NGOs are helping thousands affected by the drought. Speaker Madube, who was addressing the media in Mogadishu on Saturday, said many people will die of starvation if the short November-December rains fail, which may lead to increased levels of hunger. Mr. Madube said the country is reporting the first cases of death as a result of severe drought, causing havoc in many parts of the country. According to the United Nations, the worst famine of the 21st century is unfolding in the Horn of Africa. For months, a climate change-fueled drought of historic proportion, coupled with other factors, has caused severe food shortages in Somalia, Ethiopia, and Kenya. 4 consecutive failed rainy seasons have threatened millions with food insecurity in the Horn of African country. An estimated 48 million people across Somalia, Haiti, Djibouti, Kenya, Niger, Afghanistan, Guatemala, Madagascar, Burkina Faso, and Zimbabwe suffer acute hunger, defined as hunger resulting from a shock and causing risks to lives and livelihoods, and based on reports compiled by the World Food Programme. That figure is up from 21 million people in 2016, as 18 million people are on the brink of starvation.
The Banadi Regional Administration has temporarily halted issuance of title deeds and transfers of land until further notice. The new city regional administration has directed the Department of Land, which is charged with the overall responsibility of ensuring efficient planning, administration, and sustainable management of the land resource in Banadi to only facilitate approval of new buildings. The department has been stopped from dealing with all other related land issues.
gudoomiyaha gobolka Banaadir ahna duqa magaalada Muqdisho mudane Yuusuf Xuseen Jimcaale Madaale ayaa amar ka soo saaray dhulalka gaarka loo leeyahay iyo kuwa danta guud. Gudoomiyaha ayaa si ku meel gaar ah u hakiyay dhammaan arrimaha la xiriira dhulalka asigoona faray agaasimayaasha shaqada ku leh waaxahaasi in ilaa iyo amar dambe aan howlo la xiriira dhul la qaban karin marka laga reebo fasaxa dhismaha. sidoo kale gudoomiyaha ayaa ku celiyay in dhulalka iyo guryaha danta guud ee hore loo hakiyay ay weli sidoodii
The mayor has temporarily halted processing, issuance and transfer of land. Instructions have been given to the directors of land departments to cease dealing with all land-related issues until further notice. This does not apply to the approved buildings. This does not apply to the approving of building new buildings. This does not apply to the approval of buildings. All constructions halted by the government previously remains the same. This applies to both public and private property in the city.
The U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III has reaffirmed his government's support to Somalia in countering violent extremism. Mr. Austin, who met President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud in Washington, said the U.S. is committed to continue partnering with Somali security forces in securing Somalia and the region.
The United States government has pledged to continue to support Somalia, which is facing a tipping point with hundreds of thousands of people at immediate risk of famine. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Friday met President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, who is in Washington. The two leaders discussed shared stabilization, good governance, and humanitarian goals. Their meeting comes just weeks after donors' appeal for resources to provide immediate flexible funding so that humanitarian agencies on the ground, particularly local and international NGOs, can rapidly scale up and prevent more death, protect livelihood, and avert a deepening catastrophe. Mr. Hassan Sheikh, who also met the Undersecretary Victoria Nuland, discussed with the leaders the importance of combating terrorism, promoting good governance, and responding to drought in Somalia. President Hassan Sheikh thanked the United States for the support it has continued to offer Somalia, including the fight against terrorism and the provision of humanitarian aid. He reaffirmed his government's strategic partnership with the United States of America. The head of state is on official visit to the United States, where he is scheduled to attend the United Nations General Assembly meeting in New York next week. Hassan Sheikh has also met Dr. David R. Malpass, president of the World Bank. The president underscored Somalia's commitment to complementing the debt relief process, noting the need to align development projects with the national priorities. They also discussed the bank's continued support in Somalia's reform effort to rebuild sound economic governance institutions that propel economic growth and stability for the benefit of the people.
The U.S. government has committed to continue supporting stabilization efforts in Somalia as the country revamps from a bitter civil war that disrupted governance. The U.S. will support Somalia in responding to threats posed by organized crime and counterterrorism.
United States Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III received President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud at the Pentagon on Thursday, reaffirming Washington's support to Somalia security forces. The two leaders discussed Somalia-US partnership in confronting international terrorism and working toward a more secure and stable world. The leaders discussed the work that President Hassan Sheikh administration has done to counter violent extremism in Somalia and the department's support to Somalia security forces. The two exchanged views on the security outlook for the Horn of Africa in light of climate shocks, humanitarian issues, conflicts, and the threat of violent extremism. Secretary Austin reaffirmed the department's commitment to countering violent extremism and expressed appreciation for President Hassan Sheikh administration's willingness to host United States forces. He praised President Hassan Sheikh's leadership in reinvigorating the Somali security forces and proactively engaging with the United States and international partners. Somalia and the United States have agreed going forward to further develop the bilateral defense relationship.
The Somali Disaster Management Agency has called for action as millions face hunger amid biting drought in many parts of the country. The agency now wants partners and well-wishers to act quickly between the months of September and October to avert famine. The Somali Disaster Management Agency has called for action to avert famine and save the lives of millions affected by climate change-induced drought. The agency on Friday convened the first official meeting with state ministries of humanitarian affairs and disaster management of the federal states of Jubaland, Puntland, Southwest, Galmudug, and Hirshabelle. At the meeting in Mogadishu, the leaders highlighted the dire humanitarian situation and ongoing response efforts. It also sought to provide a platform to build stronger links and coordination between the agency and the ministries of the federal member states. The ministers welcomed the recent administrative changes by the federal government of Somalia, which led to the reinstatement of Somali Disaster Management Agency and assured commitment to full cooperation and collaboration. Mr. Mohamud Maalim, Commissioner of Somali Disaster Management Agency, has warned that the critical levels of acute food insecurity currently witnessed are likely to deteriorate sharply, making famine a reality.
taas jirto wada shaqeyn loo gudbi karaa wada shaqeyn iyo iskaashi loo gudbi karaa annagu waxaan rabnaa haddaan nahay hay'adda sodmo ee arrimahan gargaarka iyo bini'aadanimada loo xil saaray dowladda federaalka inaan idala shaqeyno.
The critical levels of acute food insecurity we are witnessing today are likely to deteriorate sharply and the risk of famine remains very real. The critical levels of acute food insecurity we are witnessing today are likely to deteriorate sharply and the risk of famine remains very real. Scaling up of humanitarian assistance is therefore urgently required to ensure we move faster before critical pre-famine phase.
The situation in Somalia continues to be precarious. The country continues to face drought spanning at least 4 consecutive failed rainy seasons. Over 7.7 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance and protection. More than 3 million of these need urgent life-saving assistance. Malnutrition is surging and has reached emergency levels in some locations, especially among internally displaced people.
wuxuu marayaa meel aad u adag oo aanan ruuxantii inta la og yahay aanan saan oo kale dalka uusan soo marin.
The usual short-term focused interventions are not the answer to the crisis Somalia faces today, and the long-term recovery solutions to reduce risk and vulnerability among the affected communities are urgently required. We as government humanitarian actors appeal to all Somalis locally and the diaspora to support their fellow citizens in this critical time. Please act now before it's too late.
Nearly 1 million people have been displaced due to drought and conflict since November 2021, mainly from rural areas to urban centers. The estimated number of displaced people in Somalia is now about 2 million. The Somali National Army has claimed to have put out of action 30 members of the militant group Al-Shabaab in Hiran region. The area has been host to top military offensives in the past weeks. According to the government, fighting erupted at 2 a.m.
More than 30 members of the militant group Al-Shabaab were killed by the Somali National Army in Abore area, which is about 25 kilometers east of Bulaburde district in Hiran region. According to the Somali news agency, the armed forces engaged in a battle with the militant group Al-Shabaab in the area at around 2 a.m. in the morning. The security agencies successfully carried out an intensive attack after receiving details regarding the militants' plot. However, 5 members of the Somali National Army were injured during the attack, according to sources within the military. Abori area, which was recently liberated by the SNA forces, was an essential location for the militant, who used the area as a route to cross from the eastern areas and to other parts of the country. In the recent battles between the government forces along with local community cooperating with the government, more than 150 members of the militant group were killed and many areas have been liberated from their hands. The Somali government said in a statement that it is grateful to the people who are working closely with the armed forces in the anti-terrorism operations to eliminate the group. Meanwhile, in the same region, 4 people were killed after a car they were traveling in hit a roadside bomb planted by suspected Al-Shabaab militants in Akaboi village near Buraqaba area in the south of Hiran region on Friday, according to state media. The 4 included a prominent traditional elder known as Yusuf Fido, his son Ibrahim Yusuf, and 2 other traditional elders identified as Hassan Hussein.
The Somali police force is probing suspected Al-Shabaab members arrested in Mogadishu over terror activities. At least 10 men have been arrested in an operation conducted by the police and the Somali National Intelligence Agency. Somali police said Saturday they are interrogating 10 Al-Shabaab suspects after being arrested on Friday, following an operation from their hideout in the country's Mogadishu city, administered by the federal government of Somalia. Somali National Security Forces arrested the Al-Shabaab terrorists and seized 3 residential houses they were secretly operating and weapons in a planned security operation in Mogadishu, said a statement from the government. The Special Forces of the National Intelligence and Security Agency carried out the operation last night after receiving intelligence from the public and the agents on the ground, which led to a successful operation. During the operation, the forces destroyed a network of Al-Shabaab militants who were planning terrorist attacks to undermine the security of the capital and to harm the public. The arrested militants include a group of hitmen who were prepared to target the innocent people of Mogadishu, doctors who were prepared to treat the militia, and others who facilitated accommodation and transportation for the terrorists. The cells have been vital to the Somali insurgent group Al-Shabaab, which is opposed to the central government of Somalia. Mogadishu is under a new administration following the removal of Omar Hassan Filish as the governor of Banaadir and mayor of Mogadishu. The new administration of Yusuf Hussein Madale has promised to tackle the insecurity affecting Somalia's most populous city.
oo labada dhinac naga soo wajahday haday ahaaleeday kuwa arxan laabayaasha ah ee argagixisada ah iyo kuwa kale ee bariyan magacyada kala duwan la baxay oo weero iyo magacyo sameystay hadii.
The government of Somalia said it is committed to eradicate the terrorism in the country, calling on the Somali people to share information with security agencies. The government has also urged members and fighters of the militant group Al-Shabaab to return to their people and surrender to the government. And those are some of our top stories for this hour. This is Dalsan TV English broadcast with me, Hibak Ahmed. Till we meet again, enjoy the rest of your viewing.